Hey, Andy, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being on.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
I always love when I'm reviewing sort of the notes coming into the show, and it's someone who, I'm interviewing someone who listened to the podcast, and for you 5, 6 years ago, which is so
Yeah.
how it comes full circle and how we've had the show going long enough now that we start to have folks 5 years into business coming on the show and sharing their story, and it all started with a podcast, which is really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, I was slopping paint on the walls in my house in Kansas, listening to the podcast and got this idea like, I could do that. I don't know what made me think that at the time. I really had no business thinking that at the time, but I did.
As we say, entrepreneurship is more confidence than skill, and sometimes
Indeed.
that confidence is really what you need. I say it's a bit of a tangent, but I was going through 2 years ago now my CFP renewal, and I've got to get 30 hours. I go to so many conferences, but I never sit in the CE sessions. And so I was slugging through Kitsis.com CE, which is, getting 30 hours of that in a month is delightful.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
Thanks to Michael for the real CE and not making it easy. But one of the research studies that they talked about was sort of the predictor of success for entrepreneurs, and it talked about that, we think of entrepreneurs as high risk takers. They have a higher level of risk tolerance, which the research they cited said that wasn't true, that we actually have the same risk tolerance as everybody else. What we have is a higher level of overconfidence, which
Yeah,
is
which
interesting, and like I was like, okay, yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I mean, our
Cool.
favorite saying at the table financial planning right now is it'll be fine.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you trust you can figure it out, then it's hard to get, too far behind. So,
right.
well, with that tangent, let's circle back and I'd love to hear, more about sort of your background and career history and what led you to ultimately starting your own financial planning firm. So, what was sort of your career path from college? What did you think you wanted to be when you grew up, and how did that ultimately lead to financial planning?
Well, I loved math and science, so I went to a little liberal arts school to study math, and that was a little too esoteric, and I didn't want to be a math teacher, so I transferred into an engineering school. And yeah, and then I married my high school sweetheart, and he was an Air Force pilot, and it was back in 1991. And there was no such thing as a work from home engineer job or, part time engineering job for a woman when you were trying to raise kids and had a husband who was deploying, because that was back, first Gulf War, way back there. So I ended up taking all I knew and my resume into the office of the department head for the math at the community college where we were living at the time in Wichita, Kansas. And he looked at my resume. He's like, I don't know why you're here and why you want my job, but I'll hire you. So I started teaching night school. And I think it was two moments in the teaching at community colleges over the years as we moved about the countryside. And I was always the new person. I always, got the dregs, what was left over at every
It's
place
every
I
two
went.
years, right, that you're getting
Yeah,
deployed
it's
to a
every
new
year or
location, and
two. Yeah, yeah, you PCS and you're the new person again, and you're getting the dregs again. And the dregs were usually the basic math class for returning students, and they had to pass it to be able to stay in whatever their program was.
hmm,
And it was a struggle for people. It was a struggle for me because, numbers came easily to me and not so much to them. And it was kind of two moments. I know one of the moments was I was grading papers and I had to read one of the answers to my husband. I'm like, I found somebody who's going to pay $432 for a used book at the library because they don't understand math yet. And that was, we had all these sarcastic things that we wanted to write on the paper, like, "Are you kidding me?" But I did not, I refrained, and, but anyway, it kind of, like, little light bulb for me, like, "Wow, you know what? People, I bet, will engage better with math if it relates to their money."
mm,
So, I started kind of rewriting everything, like, you're a carpenter and you're building some stairs. So, small business owners, imagine that, making financial decisions and you can bring in a lot of lessons with decimals and fractions and percentages and basic math skills. And that led to kind of the second aha moment. I had a lady, probably 40 years old, come up to me towards the end of the semester. We were getting ready to take the final. And she said, "Thank you so much." She goes, "I run a catering business out of my house, and I've never really been good at knowing how much to order or what to charge people. I was always at a loss. I was always screwing it up, and I haven't been since I started learning things in your class." And that
that's
was when I'm
cool.
like, I wanted to help people this way. So that was kind of the
Okay.
personal finance seed that was planted. So yeah, so from there I had some more kids and started homeschooling. So that's not
Okay.
what you expect to come next.
No, it's
Um,
listeners probably know I was homeschooled my entire life, so I am very appreciative of the homeschool philosophy and what that
yeah,
takes for
yeah,
parents to be able to do so.
yeah. Rhonda and I have swapped some stories.
Rhonda is mom. Folks are always surprised it always takes like a year of working with Rhonda. She's on the bean counters team, so if you're in need of a bookkeeper, Rhonda does all the onboarding and trainings and does work with some clients still as well. So, but
Yep.
yeah, I mean, we were homeschooling. That would have been, oh gosh, I guess 95 is when we started because I was going into second grade
Yeah.
and make 94. Anyway, and we did it because of just a really bad school system. But I imagine, okay, I'm putting words in your mouths, but like, was it because of the constant moving that it made more sense to
It
homeschool?
was a combination of things. Like, it's hard to have consistency for kids' education when you're moving all the time. And, we had our kids in Catholic school and the schools had done a wonderful job, but even that can't really provide a lot of consistency. And also, fast forward, it's right after 9/11, and like I have 4 children, they're all different ages. I feel like I'm on everybody's roller coaster. I'm like, I need to get off somebody's roller coaster.
Mm.
And so it was the school roller coaster. And it worked out okay. I am sure my children, they had to learn algebra and stuff with me, and they will tell you different math stories. Like mom sitting there saying, "Oh my God, if you knew calculus, this would be so much easier." I traumatized them. So yeah, but in the midst of all this, my husband is deploying a lot and a lot. Um, he's flying a KC-135 refueler. We're living in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And yeah, I don't know. I started reimagining something for myself. And in 2006, FINRA partnered with AFCPE to offer the Military Spouse FINRA Fellowship to become an accredited financial counselor. And that has been a wonderful partnership. FINRA and AFCPE have done so much for the military community and military families in helping them learn more about how to manage their money. And they did that because they tied security clearances to your credit report. And, it wouldn't be fair to link those two things together without offering some resources for people who are going to have the hammer come down on them.
Yeah,
So,
so for the non-service members or folks that don't have service members in their family, so security clearance is necessary for certain. I mean, for a lot of ranks and a lot of
yes,
jobs in the military. And one bankruptcy will end your security clearance for reasons that I can figure out. They want to be sure that
yeah,
you're not in a desperate financial situation and having
right.
access to funds and sensitive information and such with the military. And the bankruptcy rates of young service members is extraordinarily high, right? I mean, of your really.
Yeah, young service members definitely have the opportunity to overspend because
Mhm.
creditors look at them and they're like, wow, a young guy, young gal with a secure income, let's, extend them a lot of credit and have them be beholden to us. And yeah, and it's the risk of also being distracted by money problems and not being
Mhm.
able to accomplish the mission. You've got to be focused on what you're doing. You know, your peers are relying on you to do your part. So,
So I did
yeah.
not realize it was a FINRA. I was aware of the program. I didn't know FINRA was the one that actually helped back it, which is so cool. So
Yes.
it would allow service members, partners to go or spouses to go through and get the AFC designation, which is
Yes.
kind of like the CFP for normal Americans, if you will,
Yes,
because the
yes.
CFP is certainly catered to a higher income, higher wealth than typical American. The AFC, from my experience, is very much focused
Mhm.
on day-to-day cash flow management, debt management, credit scores,
Uh-huh.
all the
Yes.
questions our friends have that we couldn't answer after the CFP program because that's not what they teach you.
Right, exactly, exactly. So, yeah, so I worked on the DoD contract for a long time with military families.
So you're working with other
Um,
military families on
yeah, yeah.
base. Okay.
On the installations, we as personal financial counselors had confidentiality, so a service member might be referred to us as having some issues with their credit report, but then there is no reporting of the chain of command. So, if you know service members who need some help, this is a confidential program to get you the money help you need.
And it's on
And
every
they're still
base,
at it.
correct?
Every
And I think every
installation.
ba everywhere has a PFP, personal financial what's the acronym? Sorry.
I don't know. It's
You
the
just said
financial
it. Per
program manager,
There we go.
FPM or something like that. And that person is a government employee, whereas the personal financial counselors on this contract are not employed directly by the government. There's a separation there. There's no
Mhm.
reporting back to anyone. There's no record keeping. It is strictly, for your benefit. We aren't going to be talking about this with anybody else.
And are
So yeah, I
experts
did
not
that.
only in cash flow, debt management, but also just all the intricacies of the military
Yeah,
pay structure because it is complex. It's
it
not simple.
is.
It's very advantageous, typically to service
Yes.
members, but it is complex.
Yeah, it really is. And, at the more years I did that, I kind of became frustrated because, you can't venture into those regulated conversations about investments and insurance. And if people keep coming back to you, eventually they get to a place where they need a little bit more.
Mhm.
And I wanted the CFP to have those tools in my toolbox. And so, Alan, at the 2017 AFCPE symposium, when you were the keynote speaker, where we first met, what I wrote down in my notebook that I say all the time to AFCs who are wanting to become CFPs who are starting to see that, I'm like, the AFC is the couch to 5K program. And you've got to have somebody help you get off the couch and get going and start asking all the important questions and thinking about your money in a different way. And, the CFP is, the marathon training that comes after that. But yeah, we all need the AFC skills first in a lot of cases to just get going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that metaphor because it really is. The CFP program is sort of designed for folks who have already figured out a lot of things financially. They've got that foundation in place. Whereas the AFC is really about laying the foundation and helping get those skills, those money skills in order to develop wealth. And so they're both really important. That's so cool. So 2017, you went to the conference. Were you aware of the CFP? Were you thinking that that was the direction
Oh,
you
yeah.
already
Oh,
wanted to
yeah.
go? Okay.
Yeah. No. So again, so in 2016, being a military spouse has its rewards sometimes. The American College offers a scholarship program for military veterans and their spouses to do the CFP education. So I became acquainted with Adrienne Ross on social media. She is also a CFP and an XYPN member now. And she said, "Hey, Andy, I'm starting this scholarship program and you should look into it. It
Hmm.
seems like what we want and need for clients." And so I did. And about the same time, I became acquainted with Alex Hopkins on social media, who we all know from Simply Paraplanner,
Mhm.
another military spouse. And she said, "Hey, start listening to this XYPN radio podcast. I think you'll really like it." So that's how I found myself schlepping paint in my new house and listening to. I remember Mitch Anthony was the podcast, and I'm like, I got to do this. This is what I want to do. And
Oh,
I had
that's
no
awesome.
business thinking it, but I did. And like, that was it. And I passed the CFP exam in November 2017 and then came to the conference a week later at AFCPE. And you gave the keynote, and Maddie and Stacy were there.
Mhm.
And Maddie was kind of freaking out. She's like, "Oh, I don't sit next to people and sign them up for XYPN. This is weird."
Yeah, Maddie came out. Stacy at the time was our head of sales, and I say head
Hmm.
of sales, she was the salesperson. It
Oh,
was a team of one. But yeah, that was one of Maddie's first conferences coming out, and it is different to explain membership to someone who's an existing member and how do we maximize benefits, which is sort of where Maddie has historically hung out versus, someone who's interested. And it's less about the
yeah.
benefits and more about telling the true story of entrepreneurship
Hmm.
and being honest, which, about that journey, because it is not an easy journey. No, anyone who tells you it's an easy journey is lying or
Right.
had a leg up that the rest of us did not necessarily have.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
what made you decide that was your husband still active military at that time?
He had just retired from the military. So,
Okay.
I have to say, like, we had that military pension. He served 28 years. And, so as far as financial runway goes, we were okay. We were always going to have that pension. He was transitioning to the airlines, and airline pilots can tell you it's a little lean in that first year or two. They don't make the big bucks then. He was at a regional because he didn't have a lot of current flying hours after coming out of command. So, yeah, so we were, eh, it was interesting.
So what made you then? Because he had the flexibility. I mean, you could live somewhere not on a base, which many
Yes.
times are out in the middle of nowhere and not a lot of job opportunities. You had the opportunity probably to go work at a financial planning firm. What led you down the path of starting your own firm instead
Well,
of
because we had become vagabonds. I couldn't imagine, like, having a career in one place and going into the same office every day. Holy moly, that sounds terrible. We moved 3 times after the military because we
mm,
couldn't decide what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I would, honestly, I was schlepping paint in a house that we had owned since 1999. We moved back into it because we're like, "Okay, well, we don't know what we wanna do. We don't know where the airline is eventually gonna domicile you, so we'll move back into the Kansas house and, figure it out from there." And so November 2017, December 2017, I'm in my launcher group and I'm getting some help from Travis, and we've got my registration paperwork filed with the state of Kansas. And at the end of March, I am sitting at the gate at the airport waiting for a flight to Phoenix because we're moving again. And that's when the state security office called and said, "Oh, you're approved." I'm like, "Great.
That's great.
Wonderful. We'll start this process over again in a little while." So, but I had picked up 3 or 4 clients before we moved, and they're all still with me. I am grateful to them because they've been through a lot with me, a lot of turmoil, not just my family, but some of my clients. Um, a lot of learning curve. And so, yeah, we landed in Arizona and been here ever since, and we love it. You don't have to shovel sunshine. That's what I tell people. We lived in a lot of northern tier states during my husband's military career. So,
This comes at a
um,
great time. We got 31 inches of snow in a 24-hour period this past
oh,
weekend, so,
oh,
I've been
but the
doing a lot of shoveling.
skiing. Oh, but the skiing, that's
Oh,
what I
yeah.
miss most. Yeah.
It is, it's unbelievable, but yeah, there's a lot of shoveling of actual snow here. It's fascinating to me just the motivations that go into entrepreneurship because it's not the same for everyone. And so, is it fair to say that it really was lifestyle oriented in the sense that you didn't know where you wanted to live? It's hard to get a job when you don't know
Yes.
where you want to live, and just to give yourself that flexibility.
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't you don't have long-time community connections when you're a military family, but I have long-time connections with other military families. So
Mhm.
my practice is all virtual. I have clients, all over the country and the world. Military families stationed overseas, and that can make Calendly challenging sometimes. But yeah, it's worked out great. And I do like the flexibility. And I couldn't imagine at the time, I was still a young, naive, just passed the CFP exam person, and I thought, "I don't wanna sell products. I don't wanna go work for a broker-dealer and get the experience there," and, I would say to you, if that's what you're saying, like, "Oh, I hate sales. I don't wanna do sales," you're always in sales.
Mhm.
But the product you're selling is yourself when you open your own business, and, if you believe in what you're doing and why you're doing it, that's the easiest kind of sales there is, so,
Absolutely. I appreciate you saying that because I hear that a lot. I don't, and I used to say that too. I don't want to do sales. And what I meant was I didn't want to have like slicked back oiled hair going networking events and
yeah.
dropping business cards everywhere. Like it's just the vision of sales is it is a
Uh-huh.
grimy, dirty, weird. My dad sold cars. He's on the police car side now, but like I grew up sort of around dealerships and you see the used car sales mentality and just like sales just sounds like a dirty thing until you do it for, in selling sort of this fee only service, this fiduciary centric service. And you're like, oh, this is a service that helps people that I believe in that, and I'm,
Yes.
I'm selling my ability to help you. And suddenly your mentality of sales changes. It's still sales. You still got to do it.
Yeah, 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 but when you believe in what you're offering and my long history, I was a young military spouse with some money to invest, and it was hard to find somebody who wasn't gonna sell me a product, and I wanna offer that to other people, just advice without a product, and, you know, if I can be that little piece of the world for somebody, that's great.
So starting out, was the intent to work with service members or prior service members, current service members? So what was the thought process on your ideal client profile?
Well, you know what? That is my ideal client. That's my world. That's what I know. I speak their language. And I'll say I gave it a little bit of pushback early on just because, God, we've been doing military for 28 years, honey. I don't know if I want that to be my niche. But,
Mm.
it has become, it's the majority of my clients, I would say. I mean, definitely over 50%. But the other half looks a little bit different as well, and actually, it's still a little bit focused on those experiences in the military. It's a lot of women who are independent-minded, who are the chief financial officer of their household, whether they're single, divorced, married, widowed, whatever, and they want a thinking partner, and I realize now that's kinda what I was looking for too, was a thinking partner
Mm.
'cause, my husband was out there as the sole income in the family and doing his thing, and, "Here, you figure this out," and it worked great. We worked great as a team that way because I was the one always at home who could handle all those decisions when needed. And so we have a lot of female attorneys who are, capable, they're smart, they don't want to hand their investments over to somebody else to manage. They just want to know more things. They want advice. So yes, I fully drank the XYPN Kool-Aid. I am completely monthly retainer. There is no AUM, the business. Well, that's a lie. We do have a few small 401k plans that with guideline that charge on
Sure.
AUM, but but we're all monthly retainer otherwise.
So what percentage of your clients fit into that current or prior military families?
I should have looked up these numbers. I would say probably half.
Okay. So
Yeah.
half are military, and then the other half sort of fit into this female CFO, head of the
Mhm.
finances of the family or household, I
Yeah.
should say.
Yeah. And we have a lot of tech people too, because a lot of military members are transitioning to some of the big tech companies.
Mhm.
So and then their friends find us. So we're starting to have a little bit of that. And a lot of the attorneys who have come to us, they actually have found a financial coach out east, and she has been referring them to us. So it's been kind of a handing off of the AFC mindset to the CFP, like exactly what you were talking about back in 2017, Alan.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I was gonna ask how are these clients finding you? Because it sounds like I mean, you have this ideal client that you're looking at working, but it's starting to get a little broader now because
Yeah,
more folks are finding you. As we say, that's pretty typical when you do work with folks outside of your niche, they tend to refer people outside of your niche to you. So it
yeah,
is a self-fulfilling prophecy,
yeah,
which is okay.
exactly.
That's if that's the direction you want to
So, yeah, I'm not doing a very good job of narrowing my niche.
go.
It's kind of, I don't know. It's okay. It's fine. I also feel like the people who work with me now in my business are adding to the specialties that we can offer. So that helps. But people are finding me, honestly, I don't have a marketing budget really to speak of. I make sure that my profile is up to date out there, the CFP site, the AFCPE site, NAPFA, XYPN has funded advisor. I do pay fee only network. They do a good
Mhm.
job for me. There's another XYPN member who started a Phoenix fee only site, and we occasionally get traffic from that. But the big one, the really big one, is there were 5 of us who were XYPN members who started something called the Military Financial Advisors Association as a way to just have another website that promotes fee only fiduciary advice for military and veteran families. And with our other goal being to defeat companies that like to sell products to military families and come up higher in the search rankings than they do. So,
Yeah, there are quite a few large companies we won't name here. But yeah, I mean, I remember when I was doing some work with Zyders, and so Zyders, are they still the primary, or they're I guess what's the other
you know
one?
what? That is a good
Image
question right now.
NGS?
It's going to be changing. I have been a part of the Zyders contract for 10 years, and they've done an excellent job of delivering these financial counseling services to service members, but they are not going to recompete that contract. So it is going to be moving to a different company, but they will likely take everybody over with them. Yeah. So it's going to be in transition this summer, but still around.
And so that is a private company that you can sign up with, and they have contracts. They bid and get the contract to be able to provide these personal financial
Yes.
counselors to service
Hmm.
members on base
Hmm.
because you may be different individually, but like me as a financial advisor, I can't get on base to go give financial education because historically folks have preyed on the military and service members for a variety of reasons. And so some of the large companies who shall not be named tend to be those companies as well that they've preyed on sort of the a heightened sense of mortality and fear for service members and their partners around and therefore sold insurance products, investment products that they
Hmm.
really didn't need, really should have
Right.
had. And so there is sort of this growing movement now of and the
Hmm.
Department of Defense has done a lot of this work in helping get a Zyders or MHNGS or whoever's going to be the new one. We'll find out here soon on base giving good advice. But then you mentioned, so it's the Military Financial Advisors Association. So
Yes.
listeners Google that, the website will pop up. And sort of what's the purpose? If I'm an advisor, why would I be interested in this group?
Well, I tell you what, shout out to Daniel, who runs our website. He's done a great job with SEO. We just get a lot of traction. The advisors who are listed there on the site, we all have growing, thriving businesses. We basically created a marketing tool for ourselves that has been really successful and beyond our wildest dreams, probably. So, yeah. And I showed up late to the first meeting. So I got elected the officer in charge to get started. And yeah,
Congratulations.
I know, right? So, but it's been a great ride with everybody in that group. And it was Paul, Sean, Daniel, Adrian, Ross that started that with me. And we're just really happy that more military families are connecting with fiduciary advice. And if you Google military financial advisor, we will come up on the first page.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And we did a panel at XYPN Live this year with some of the folks you just mentioned. And I mean, there are, we say so Military Financial Advisor Association, that's folks who are working with current or former service members and their families. However, there are niches within that. I mean, one
Yes.
specifically works with current and ex-fighter pilots, and that's his thing,
Mhm.
that's his
Yeah.
jam, which was really cool to hear about sort of how fighter pilots, the mentality, the personality, all of that goes in, and how that has sort of developed into a challenge
Yes.
that it takes a specialist to be able to overcome
Hmm.
and work through. And so there are other niches as well. It's not
Yeah.
just broad based.
Right, right. I work with a lot of accidental landlords because that's another issue in the military. You buy a house and then, oh, you're moving. And you might be a little underwater or, it's just not the right time to sell. So, a lot of accidental landlords in the military investing in passive income real estate, which is not so passive when you are
Yeah,
in a
I always
different
put quotes
country.
around passive. There's no such thing as
Yeah,
passive
yeah.
income.
But, and, Adrienne, she works a lot with people who have student loans. There's a lot of different rules and exceptions that apply to service members in working on paying back student loans and programs that are out there. So we do have some specialties. Daniel works with survivors, people who have lost a service member
Mhm.
and all the things surrounding that. There are benefits for those people, but you have to know they're there and how to use them and take advantage of them. And so, yeah, it's been a great ride. We're very pleased with how that has gone.
And it's a great example. My understanding is that it's only available to those who are members of XY Planning Network, but we get a lot of questions about like, well, I'm struggling to find a niche. I don't know where I want to sort of settle down and focus. And there are different groups out there. This is a great example of one where if you have any experience or interest in working with service members, there's so much complexity to the programs and benefits that are out there, and you can join a group like this and start to build your knowledge base toolkit and have people
Right.
around you who know it, who
Hmm.
can help provide that guidance
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
answer questions and be able to help a lot of people. And there's a willingness and ability to pay, as well,
Yes,
which is important.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Especially, the monthly retainer fee. That's what works so well for the military because a lot of times their biggest investment asset is TSP. And
Mhm.
you can't manage that as an AUM model. So what do you do? Or they are accidental landlords. So they have a lot of their net worth tied up in properties all over the country. Also, another thing that doesn't work very well with the AUM model. So it does help. You guys do a great job helping us too, honestly, because we let you do the due diligence for the fee only part. So we know if they're in the network and they're okay. And you offer us that monthly gathering on Zoom, the military veteran interest group. So, and everybody's welcome to come to that. If you have a military or veteran client and you have a question, show up. We are happy. One or more of us from MFAA will be there for sure. And we're more than happy to answer the questions you might have about your client's money.
Yeah, it's so many times we treat developing that niche focus as a checklist of, oh, I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that. And so many times we just don't know. We don't have that natural marketplace. We don't have any inroads into that community. We don't know how to serve that community. And so many times, niche focus becomes this like, oh, well, that's just market. I think working with service members is a really good example of it's unbelievably complex, totally unique programs that don't exist for anyone else out there, and again, they're not all automatic. You got to know where to look. I mean, just now we're talking about the numbers of layers in the websites to be able to find the thing, the form to file to get the benefit. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I think the DoD has done a great job making stuff available, but really,
Yeah.
really challenging to find. And so it
Yes.
it really does sort of hone in on, I like to define niche as the problem that you want to help people solve.
Right. Yeah.
And there's clearly a problem, which is, navigation of all the benefits, coordination of all of it, really understanding. Again,
The
depending on where
acronyms,
you. Oh
just the
gosh, yeah.
acronym.
Yep,
Like,
you
you
could,
really
you
do
could write a
speak
book on
a
acronyms.
different language. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like the current issue. This is a big one. I wanna talk about this for half a second. The government has opened up an SBP open season, which that doesn't mean very much to many
It doesn't
people.
mean anything to me. It sounds like hunting.
Exactly, but this is a huge deal to your clients. If they are retired military and they regret the decision they made about the survivor benefit program, there is an open season, and this happens once in a blue moon that you can reverse your decision.
Hmm.
And it's a big deal. I have some older clients who really need to be able to change this decision because their money life has not gone the way they anticipated. And putting that survivor benefit into place is going to be important for
So, yeah,
the
what's the
spouse.
use case here? So when they retire, they select.
So it's basically selecting into an annuity. So you give up 6.5% of your pension every month to buy a benefit for your surviving spouse of
Hmm.
55% of the pension. You pay that premium for 30 years. So, that's a long time and it's a lot of
Yeah.
money. And, for some people, buying life insurance is a more affordable way to go. But that assumes that a spouse wants to manage a huge life insurance payout. So there's a lot of questions around that, what's going to keep people up at night? How is the spouse going to feel taken care of in the end by, one election or the other? So you have to decide at retirement, and your life can change dramatically after that. I mean, there are people retiring at age 38 with a lifetime pension, and they're
Mhm.
making this decision, and they might not even be married yet. So, there are windows of opportunity in some life changes, but not very often. And this is a general window of opportunity for people to reconsider that election that they made way back when.
So do they have to pay back all the premiums they would have paid? Is it a pretty big financial decision?
It could be, yes. Yes, because you will have to pay back all the premiums, but, that's what your financial advisor can help you figure out. And they don't have all the details out on it yet, but, that's
Say,
just
how
one
did you
thing.
find out about that? Like, was that part of the Secure Act 8.0? I swear, I don't think
No,
we're on
it's the
2.0, but
National Defense. It's the annual National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA.
okay.
Happens every year. Like gives the military and veterans their pay increases, their increases to their housing allowance, changes their life insurance benefits. So life insurance benefits have gone up for military members, which is good news. It's always been a little too low in my opinion. So yeah,
And so
that's
you're
just
monitoring that act every
we
year.
do that.
Okay.
Yes. So that's another thing MFAA does. We try to keep current blogs up about things that are changing and how it affects military money.
So I think it's a great example of what happens when you work with clients outside of your niche and screw something up because you don't know enough. Because the amount of, if you're sitting down, if you're an advisor who works with anyone who can fog the mirror, or you have a special niche and, client walks in that's a service member thinking about retirement, making these elections, the amount of time it will take you to get up to speed to give good advice is astronomical. And we try our best, but in the end, I think what happens is we give bad advice. And and if you don't even know, if you're not in a position to be able to help make that decision on the front end, how are you even going to know when these new acts come out and open up a window to be able to
Right.
let that client know? So you always have to be diligent. I believe part of being a fiduciary is actually knowing enough to provide a positive service to your client. And you got to be really careful. It's a great example of one of probably 100 things that are happening this year that you've got to keep track of for your clients.
Right. Right.
So one of the other things I want to talk about is that you hired early on into your business, and you have called her your integrator, which is an
Yes.
EOS term. So EOS, entrepreneurial operating system, which is we are huge fans of it here at XYPN. We run all of our companies and on that system, and the visionary integrator relationship is really unique to EOS. It's really intended to be sort of the your better half, if you will, for those of us who are
Hmm.
visionaries. That's how I feel about it anyway. So can you talk about your decision to hire? Like, when did you hire? And then why was that the role you hired for versus the direction many advisors go, hire, part-time admin, that sort of thing?
Well, I knew I was approaching the point where I was going to start to feel frantic. And there's one thing I've learned from listening to XYPN podcasts. Everybody says hire before you think you need to hire before you get to that breaking point.
Yeah. So you can actually
And
train them.
yes, yes. So they can learn all that. So like a lot of other people have said, COVID times it was a booming business time for me.
Mm.
That's when my business really took off. I was in my third year and things had really started to explode. And I actually found my integrator on my client list.
Okay.
She was part of the great resignation in the end. So, yeah, but I just realized, she found me as an advisor. So my business is all virtual. And here is this woman like talking to me. And I find out she lives over there, just over the ridge. And yeah, so we started hiking together. We're having a good time. And I realized like she hired me because she was smart enough to know that she didn't know all the things. And I
Mhm.
eventually came to the point like, okay, I'm smart enough to know that she knows a lot of things I don't know. Being outside of my business and being, in corporate America, she just had a lot of skills that I don't have as the small business owner. So, yeah, so that was kind of where I decided I'm like, I don't need another person who looks just like me. I need some diversity in thinking to
Absolutely.
make this work right. So,
So did you hire her full-time or part-time out of the gate?
she has been part-time, just part-time, but, I feel like I rent her brain space full-time. It's really not fair.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
she
when
has
you
a
get
big
really great
job
yeah,
herding
when you get really great
Andie.
people, it's yeah.
Yeah.
Michael and her would get along well to talk about trying to
Yeah.
herd
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
personality that we have.
Oh, you know what? She's decided she's not as much like Michael as she thought she was. So, because I kind of thought I love, the Kitses and Carl podcast.
Mhm.
And I said, "Okay, Sherry, you are Michael and I'm Carl." And she's like,
Mhm.
"Of course you're Carl. You're all that woo-woo side of financial planning. I want to be the spreadsheet." But she's now decided that I'm a little but too much like Michael. Like I have to be 95% sure before I take the next step. Whereas, at XYPN Live this year, she learned like, okay, I kind of like Carl because he says, come on, we're just going to take the next step. Take
Mm,
the next step. It doesn't matter if we break things. It'll be okay. We got to get a new perspective. And so,
that's
yeah, we're
awesome.
both finding, the overlap in how we think and working better all the time.
I recently read there's a new Patrick Lencioni book. So Patrick Lencioni did Five Dysfunctions of a Team and some other really interesting works, but he just released The Six Working Geniuses. And it's sort of the six phases of project management from even conceptualizing that a need exists all the way through delivery. And it's been really fun to do that because it helped Michael and I sort of see why it's worked so well for us because of our sort of unique skill sets and where we fit in and then where we like collectively drop the ball at the end of projects because we're not finishers. Those folks who can take things across the finish line, which sounds like probably what she's providing you is the
Yes.
ability to sort of just be sure things are that a bow gets
Yeah.
put on the things that need to get done.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. She even Kanban boards her husband with stickies on the cabinet doors. I just gave away your secret, Sherry.
That's awesome.
That Don and I say, "We will not be ruled by your Kanban thinking."
No, and it really is. It's a gift. It probably feels like a curse at times as well for folks who have that gift. Strength is your greatest weakness. But yeah, it's a
Uh-huh.
different way of thinking and organizing thoughts and ensuring
Yes.
things get done, which is something that I
Yeah.
clearly do not have the gift of. And that's
Yeah.
why I had to
Yeah.
hire really people who are really great at
I would say the greatest thing that she's done for me is before Sherry came along, I I love my clients. Like, for me, it's all about the personal relationships with the clients. Like, I love meeting with my clients, but I saw everything as like individual clients. And
Mhm.
Sherry came along and helped me see my business as a whole and run it like a business and got me out of that headspace of like chasing all the things and seeing them all separate. And that's been so valuable.
That's awesome. Yeah, incredibly valuable skill set. So it looks, and I was looking back at the notes sort of in our pre-call, and so it sounds like you're 5 years into the business, five and a half, and or I guess just over 5 years, and coming up on 250,000 in revenue for the year. Is that for 2023 or was that for 2022?
That's where we think we'll land for 2023. Yeah.
Okay. So 2023 revenue, so 5 years hitting that 250,000 mark, which is amazing, especially because you're not managing investments. You don't
Right.
have that UM component. It really is coming from fees. What what's the goal for the business? You know, you've built this business that it's paying you really well. You've got a lot of amazing clients. You've got a cool niche. You can live wherever. It sounds like you've settled in Arizona for now. I don't know how permanent that is, but like, what's the
Yeah.
goal? What do you see as sort of the next iteration of the business that will continue to support, your lifestyle and what it is that you're hoping to
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. Well, I need to start thinking about succession planning,
Mm,
honestly. So Sherry and I are both over 50. We're grandmas. And we have Tamara working with us now. She is also over 50. So we all have some sort of military background. Tamara's husband was Army. Sherry is a Navy veteran. Her husband's also a veteran. So I don't know. I see some maybe younger military connected employees in the future who I can offer this opportunity to. Because, when I was a young military spouse, like this didn't exist. There was nothing
Right.
like this. You were just out of luck on having a professional career that was portable. And so hopefully we will have one or two more advisors working with us as we onboard more households, and hopefully sometimes some kind of continuity planning in there, succession planning to give the business a life of its own. So it's just about us. That's really
Absolutely.
hard.
And to maintain that flexibility for yourself as well, that you can
Yeah.
go on vacation,
Yeah.
you can go do the things you want to travel, do
Yeah.
things you want to be able to do.
Yeah. Go hold the grandbabies. I've
Hmm.
got a third grandbaby coming. I can't wait
Congratulations.
to grab that little guy. I got to make room in my calendar.
How are you, like, trying, I guess, achieving that balance from a time perspective of you have a successful business, you could spend as much time in the business as you choose. How are you finding ways to be sure you're also getting time with the grandkids, getting time to do the other things that you wanna be able to?
Well, my husband would tell you honestly, I have been failing at this recently. Growth is tough. So this year, one of my focuses is getting better hold of my calendar. I'm taking a week out from meetings every month so that if I want to go sit in New Hampshire or Nevada with those grandkids, I can, or plan a trip with my husband that is not going to be interrupted by meetings. So that's one of my goals. And
So
we're,
1 week a month is sort of the
yes.
block that you could work, but that's sort of a
I
week
will be
where.
working, but no meetings. Like,
Okay.
and part of the perks of being married to an airline pilot is you can just go hop on a plane and go when you want to go. And
Mhm.
I haven't been doing that enough. So hopefully I will have more opportunity to do things like that and take my work with me. I'm not tied to an office. I have a backpack. I throw in my computer and my extra screen and away we go.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, as we are coming up on time, as we think about sort of where, your career and how, how much you've accomplished and the different paths you've taken, if there's one piece of advice that you wish you could go back and give your younger self, sort of that one thing you've learned that you would go back and tell yourself, what do you think that thing would be?
Well, gosh, just do the thing that you want to do. I've had kind of a wandering professional life in a lot of ways as a stay-home mom in the military, a lot of different jobs. And my husband gave me a card when I was first starting my business, and it says on it, "You are on the right path because you're on your path."
Mm,
So, even if you think it's ridiculous what you're imagining, just, I would say, I guess I did say to myself, just do it. What's the worst thing that could happen? And, I was almost 49 years old thinking, wow, I could start a business with XYPN. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I'll just go get what they've got and get going. And it's been a great decision.
no, I appreciate you sharing that because I do hear from advisors or folks who are interested in starting their own business. I'm too old. I've had a career. And it's like, you do realize that actual success rates over time are higher by decade of age. And I
Uh-huh.
think it peaks in the 50s. And so we always think about the
Great.
20 something tech entrepreneurs of, the Zuckerbergs or whatever. Like, they are very rare because you don't know enough in your 20s to many times to be successful. And so actually, and just a lot of it is stability of income, stability of resources. You started a business when you had a
Right.
pension and a stable income, and that's different than when you're in your 20s and trying to scrap, every penny together. And it's not saying one of those is better or worse. It's just that
Mhm.
you're never too old to start a business that you love and
Right.
something that's going to be able to
Yeah.
bring you a lot of joy as you continue on in your career. So,
Right.
well, Andy, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and share your story and everything you're working on. And I can't wait to hear how things continue to progress as you continue to grow the
Great.
firm. Hopefully, get more time in that schedule for travel.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me, Alan.